High Frontier. This one is called Race for Glory, and it is a Mars tutorial. And we're going to learn a whole bunch of new stuff here. We're going to build rockets, we're going to build factories, possibly even colonies, and we're going to use the economy of the game, Aqua, in order to fuel our rockets. We're going to select cards in order to build them. So this is very close to the core game. Not quite there yet, but we're getting closer, and we're certainly learning a lot along the way. So I want to tell you some things about what's new. We have a few things that are new. So we have 3 different factions, and the first faction is the Taikonauts. Zoom into this thing here. There's the Taikonauts, and they have a prestige level of C. So they're going to go first. The second one are the NASA astronauts, and they are prestige level of D. So they're going to go second. And the third is the ESA Space Unionists, F. So they are going to go last. We have new cards here that we're going to use to build our rockets. They have the spectral types on them, which make a difference because you can only have a V factory on a V site. Remember, we talked about spectral types before, and the spectral types are the different types of bodies these things are based on their spectral type. So we have 6 different spectral types. We got S, C, D, H, V, and M. So we have our cards here that we're going to use to build our rockets. We have the economy of the game now, Aqua, sitting in there. That's going to be used to pay for fuel. Each Aqua is 1 step of fuel. And we talked about what the step of fuel is last time. We go up the step of fuel by the dotted red line. And you can see that here. We'll get a close-up of this. This is the first time you've probably seen this as a close-up. But there's a dotted red line there. And that's where the fuel goes up. And then the black is the step. This solid black line is the steps that we use for the boost, for the burns. So once we burn, we're going to follow the black line. When we add Aqua, we're going to follow the dotted red line. All right. What else is new? Yep, we have our factory cubes here. So when we build factories on the spectral type, we'll know whose factory it is. These discs here are claim discs. So when we do an explore with the Robonaut, we will be able to claim that site if we're successful. And we also have these, which are colony domes. So if we are able to, we will build a colony on that site. We also have these outposts here. So if we want to set up outposts on a site, we can do that as well. If we, I think we'd probably start as an outpost and then go to a factory, but we'll see. What else we have? So on the map, you'll notice we do not have any of the big chits there with the letters on them. We're actually using the information on the sites themselves. So there was that aerostat city, and you can see it's got an atmosphere. Here's on Mercury, you can see that there's the droplets of water. So way over there, we have the different factories and the points value for them once we build them on those spectral types. We also have a glory chit. So the first person who gets to Mars is going to be able to claim that. And it's worth one point at the end of the game if they do not return it back to Earth. But if they return it back to Earth, it's worth 2 points. So that is pretty much everything except for this sunspot cycle, which is a 12-year cycle. And each of those red discs is basically one cycle. So once we pass that red line, we're going to take off a disc. So right now, this game is going to last 24 turns. And the first player's box is on there on year number 1 to signify that they're going to be going first. So that is pretty much everything that we need to know before we get started here. So I'll turn this thing off here. And we're going to start with the first player, who are the Taikonauts. And they, of course, just like everybody else, they want to build a rocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these cards and see what we want to take. There is let's see what it's called here, a mastastable helium thruster with a 5 mass. And you can see how detailed these things are in regards to the ignition gun, the magnetic coils, liquid helium. Helium in its metastable state stores 480 megajoules per kilogram. The power is 260 megawatts, and the efficiency is 72%. I'm not going to go through every single one of these like this, but you can see how detailed this is. That's really all fluff text and also fluff images. It's just for the flavor of the game. But the keys are here. It has a 5 base thrust, and it uses aqua. This little thing at the top here, 1, means that you can spend 1 aqua in order to get an afterburn, which means 1 more burn. So right now, as a base thrust, it's got 5, but you can go to 6. Now, of course, that can change based on the modifiers up here. You know what? I think I'm gonna turn this light off of this camera, because there we go. That's probably better. All right, so you can see that once you get heavier, you get minus net thrust. The biggest one's a tug with -2. Last game, we were basically in this area when we started at 8. We were at Scout 0 and Probe +1. All right. So the person can choose here of which ones they want to take. And it's interesting because this thruster is probably pretty good. I mean, it's better than anything that we used before. Last time we had a 3-1, but now we've got a 5-1. So, my thought is that thruster is probably pretty good. So let's take a look and see in the tutorial which one they decided to choose. The second one is a Robonaut here, and this Robonaut is a 5 mass with an S spectral type. And noticing that Mars over here, let's take a look at Mars real quick. So Mars is all C spectral type. So this Robonaut probably is not too great in order to use it, but we'll see. The Refinery is a V spectral type, the atomic layer deposition, and that one has a 3 mass and a V spectral type. So the thruster also has a V spectral type. So let's see what the player decided to take here. Mass makes it harder to, it says, I'm going to read some of the text from the tutorial as well so that we understand the reasoning behind taking some of these things. Although the tutorial says this was really done by a game that was actually played. And so there can be very poor decisions and so forth. So this is not a strategy guide, but this is basically teaching us how to learn the game and do things properly. Not necessarily make decisions properly, but how to execute them properly and following the rules. All right. So mass makes it harder to get parts into orbit and to move them around the solar system. So the player decided to build up aquas in preparation for future auctions for some lighter equipment. Okay, so they're holding out. They're saying, well, that's just too much mass. I want to get components that are lighter. So I'm just not going to bid on any of them. And by the way, it is an auction. So just because the player wants to take a card doesn't mean they're actually going to get it. You have to bid on it. And you can start with a bid of 0. And if nobody bids higher, then you just take the card for free. So one thing to remember to remind everybody of is mass is different than weight. Okay, mass is different than weight. So referring to lighter equipment implies that weight and mass are the same, yet they are not. If you walk on Luna, your weight, measured in newtons, is only 1/8 of that of the Earth, yet your mass, measured in kilograms, is unchanged. Weight is an object's mass times the local acceleration of gravity, which is 9.8 meters per second squared on Earth. Therefore, a 1,000 kilogram object, okay, so that's like 2,200 pounds, weighs 9,800 kilogram meter per squared, which is also known as newtons, on Earth. And that same object would only weigh 3,700 newtons on Mars, where gravity is approximately 3.7 meters per second squared. So we have to remember that mass is different than weight. Weight takes into account gravity. So how you're basically being pushed down onto a scale by the force of gravity, which causes you to get your final weight. Now, we measure it here in the United States as pounds, but in other places, it's measured in kilograms. We also do use, for weight of food, we use the metric system quite often because you'll hear about grams. And I think that it's like 1 ounce is equal to 28 grams or something like that. So that's different though than say like an imperial system, which is cups, for example. So anyway, weight and mass. Basically, this person saying that's way too much mass to lift off of the Earth. Obviously, you need a big thrust in order to lift off the Earth. And put it into low Earth orbit. So it's going to cost a lot to basically boost it up to low Earth orbit. So they are going to hold off and they are not going to actually bid on it. So instead, there is an operation. They're going to go to a different operation, which is called the income operation. And the income operation collects 1 aqua from the pool and adds it to the aqua in the Leo slot on the playmat. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add 1 aqua to the Leo spot right over here. And there we go. We got our 1 aqua. That was an income that we basically got during this year. So think of it as they went out and did some fundraising, and now they have boosted their bank from 4 to 5. All right. So an income operation is the simplest way to get funds. If all you need is 1 aqua, then just take income. So that's going to be an operation that's always available. All right. So NASA's going to go second, and they have the same cards, of course, from which to choose because nothing was chosen. They have the same exact set of cards to choose from. And so what they're going to do is they're actually going to do a research auction operation. So one of the operations that you can do is a research auction, and that's in order to get a card. So what they decide to do is they're going to pick the thruster, which makes sense because the thruster is, in my opinion, looks pretty good. So they're going to put that card up for auction. So we'll just place it right over here. That one's up for auction. And in order to take place in an auction, the player has to have fewer than 4 cards in their hand. Well, right now, everybody's got 0. So everybody's eligible for the auction. Research auctions are loosely structured. The player conducting the research auction must start the bidding, and it's usually started at 0. Kind of makes sense. And all players, including the initiator of the auction, in no specific order. So it's a free-for-all auction at that point. So when the players stop bidding, the highest bidder wins. And bidding is done using aquas, and the winner pays the bid to the pool if they initiated the auction, or if they didn't initiate the auction, other players will have to pay the person who initiated the auction the aqua that they bid. So ties are automatically won by the initiator of the auction. So if you bid 0 and another player bid 0 and you initiated the auction, then you win. If you bid 0 and they bid 1 and then you bid 1, you win it. You win the tie. So people who have not initiated the auction need to bid higher than the initiator. So NASA is going to go ahead and lead with 0 aqua bid. And then the ESA is going to bid 1. And the Taikonauts are going to pass. Remember, because they don't like the mass. So NASA wants that thruster, of course. So they're going to match the bid of the ESA and bid 1. And ESA says, okay, you can have it. And then NASA is going to win the tie, and they're going to pay 1 aqua here to the pool, which is out of here. It's way over here. And they're going to win that card. So here's their card, and they are going to put it on the playmat here. Well, it says to put it on the playmat, but I don't really see a spot for it because this is the rocket stack. I suppose it can. It's not on the rocket stack though, so it is. It's literally in their hand, which says that it's stored on the placemat, but I don't see anywhere where on the placemat where it can be. So we'll just keep it like right there in their hand. All right. So the next player is the ESA, and the ESA is going to take a look at the cards. We have a new thruster there. This new thruster has a 2 mass and a 3 base thrust, and takes 2 aqua or 2 steps basically per burn. And this is the Hall effect thruster. All right. So the ESA takes a look at the cards, and it appears as though there's a range of mass which goes from 0, which we saw in the solar sails, to 5. So 5 appears to be the max. Prospecting on this Robonaut here is at a 2 right now. You can see right up here it's a 2. And that means that Robonaut can prospect sites that are, I believe, 2 and higher. So sites are all numbered. You can see here that the sites are numbered. There's a 1, that one's an 11, and so forth. So actually, I think I just said it wrong. I believe that what that is that is 2, and it depends on the number of drops of water that are on those sites. So it can prospect a 3 site, but it can't prospect a 1 site. I'm not sure. I think so. We'll get to it though, but I think that's what that is. So the prospecting sites, or the prospecting number here on this card, it ranges from 0 to 4. 0 is awesome. 4 is really bad. Thrust values range from 0, which is really low, to 14, which is extremely high. You'll notice that NASA and the Taikonauts have a base thrust level of 14. So that's as high as it gets. The ESA is at 12. Right there. All right. So 0, of course, is very efficient for fuel consumption. And 14 is the high, which is extremely thirsty. So it needs a lot of propellant in order to do a burn. So those are the ranges. That'll give us an idea of why they chose some of these cards. So the ESA is going to take their turn, and they do a research auction for the Robonaut. So we're going to auction off this Robonaut here. This Robonaut is a neutral beam Robonaut. And they're going to go ahead and, sorry about the reflection here. Let's just hold this up. That's what the Robonaut looks like. It's got a 5 mass and S spectral type. So they're going to go ahead and it's got a ISRU rating of 2, as we mentioned, and a mass of 5. The ISU rating of 2 is pretty good. So it makes the card tempting despite its high mass, because the player with this technology in a rocket would have the versatility to undertake site refuel operations and prospecting operations on any sites with 2 or more water droplets. Okay, so I did get it right ultimately at the end there. 2 or more water droplets on a site, this Robonaut would be able to attempt to prospect and attempt to find something. So the Mars sites, let's just take a look at Mars. They all have more than 2 water droplets. They have 3, 4, and 4. So this Robonaut would be able to prospect all 3 sites, or at least attempt to find something there. So that's the reason why this person wants to get this card. Makes sense. Even though it is a high mass. So what they're going to do is they're going to bid 0, and the Taikonauts abstain. They don't. They think that mass is too high. However, NASA already has a thruster, and they want to get there first to get that glory chit. So they're going to go ahead and bid. Go ahead and bid one, and the ESA matches that bid with one, and then NASA goes ahead and bids two, because they really, really want to get to Mars first. So the ESA says, you know what, you can go ahead and have it. So what's going to happen is NASA is going to take their two Aquas and they're going to give it to the ESA. And NASA's going to go ahead and take that card. So NASA's happy because they've got 2/3 of their way in order to get a full-fledged rocket with a refinery and a robonaut and a thruster there. And ESA is happy because now they've got 6 Aqua and they made some good cash during that turn. So at the end of the first turn, NASA's got 1 Aqua left with two cards. The Taikonauts have 5 Aqua and the ESA have 6. So that's pretty much the end of the first turn. One thing to mention is let's talk about the economics of the game a little bit more. I'll zoom out a little bit here. There we go. All right, so essentially there are 3 ways to make money in High Frontier, and we already saw 2 of them. So the first is an income operation, what the Taikonauts did, and took 1 Aqua from the supply. The income operation is simple, obviously, but it's not very lucrative because it's only 1. However, if you do take the operation, you're not profiting any other players. So it's just you receiving the 1. The second method in order to get Aqua is the research operation. It's the auction, the income, which is variable. We saw it in the first turn. So they got 2 from another player. So it really all depends on whether or not you want the card or if you think somebody else wants it. So if you think somebody else wants it, then you can put that card up, and you also want to make sure that you want to bid it up to at least 2 Aqua. Otherwise, you should just take the income operation, right? So if you're trying to get 2 Aquas or more, then you put a card up for auction. If you only want 1 Aqua, then you just do the income operation. So one Aqua for you and in an income operation is better result than 1 Aqua for you and somebody else getting a nice card or a card. So the third way to earn Aquas is to sell a technology card, one of these cards. These are patents, basically. So you think of them as, we did the research and we patented this type of component. We haven't built it yet, but we basically own the patent on that. So NASA said, yep, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to patent that. And they paid the ESA 2 for the idea. So think of it that way. So you can sell a patent as a free market operation, and that basically earns you 3 Aquas. However, it can earn a lot more later, and we'll see that later on in this game. But you basically can sell the card for 3 Aquas. The reason why it can be worth more is because these cards are double-sided. So the black side is worth more than the white side. All right. So if you sell it, you get 3. And the best situation is if you acquire a patent for, say, 0 aquas, and then you can just sell it for 3. If you really want to, that's great. But also, let's just say the bid was 1 and you sell it for 3, you still earn a net 2. So aquas using you should never, though, pay 2 aquas for at an auction and sell it, because that's one net income. You may as well have just taken the income operation and just taken the 1, unless you don't want another player to get that card. So if you want to stop somebody from getting a card, then you can go ahead and do that. But so we're going to move on. That kind of hopefully helps us understand what the income is, how to get income, why you would want to try to get income a certain way, and so forth. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move the sunspot to year number 2. So that was the first year. That one is that did take a while, but we also explained what was going on, and it's very critical that we do understand what's going on here, because this is a very important part of the game, is building up rockets and so forth. Now, please remember, this is a multiplayer tutorial. A lot of the scenarios and things like that I'm going to be doing in the future, though, I'm going to be playing it solo. So we're going to take a look at those rules once we get there. But this should help people understand, well, number one, how to understand this tutorial and this race for glory to Mars, but also to play with other players as well. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to play another person who is really good at this game and understanding the mechanics. And their YouTube site or channel is Jeux Réfléchis. Jeux Réfléchis. It's spelled GEUXREFLECHIS. I believe that's the way it's spelled. Jeux Réfléchis. In French, I believe he lives in France, but in French, jeu is game and réfléchi is thoughtful. So thoughtful games. I think that applies to this one very well. This is a thinking person's game. So yeah. Anyway, Jeux Réfléchis, and I'm hoping to play a game with him in the future. That should be very interesting and fun once I learn these things, because that person understands the game with the core game, module 0, which comes with the core game, module 1, which is terawatt and futures, module 2, which is colonization, and module 4, which is called Exodus. So hopefully one day we'll play all those modules and we'll have a good time. So we'll see. Anyway, we just completed year 2. But before we start the next year, we're going to focus on our hand. So our hand is stored to the right of your playmat. Okay, well, we don't have space for that, so we'll just store it below. But that makes sense that it's actually not on the playmat itself. So the cards in your hand must always be white side face up, and your hand is open to other players to inspect at any time. As, of course, anything that's on your playmat as well. So there's no hidden cards here. All right. So let's take a look and see what the Taikonauts are going to do. We have a couple of new cards that this player can choose from that they weren't able to choose from last time. The Thruster with the Hull effect, and also this new Robonaut, which is a Cat Fusion 2 Pinch Torch. That one is a 2 Robonaut with a 2 ISRU Robonaut with a 3 mass. Remember, NASA just got one, which was a 2 with 5 mass. So this one is actually a better card. It's a D spectral type. Not sure exactly how that's going to factor in, but that really is a better card. So they're going to go ahead and they're going to put it up for auction. And as you can imagine, the bidding between the ESA and the Taikonauts is pretty competitive. Both want a Robonaut. NASA, not so much, although it is a better Robonaut. They could bid on it and then sell the other one later on. So ultimately, the Taikonauts are going to bid 0. ESA goes ahead and bids 1. Or bids 1. The Taikonauts bid 1, and then the ESA goes ahead and bids 2, and then the Taikonauts bid 2, and they win. So the Taikonauts get their Robonaut. We're going to put that over here underneath their playmat, and they're going to spend 2 Aqua and put it into the pool. All right. NASA is up, and there's another Robonaut here, which is the nuclear drill. And it's got a 2 mass, which is even lower than the 3 mass, and it has a 3 prospecting value, which means that it can prospect all those 3 places on Mars. So this Robonaut seems to be even better than the last Robonaut. So it also has a thrust triangle on it, which means that it can actually self-power itself and has a good thrust value of 5. So the fuel propellant per burn is a lot, but it does actually even have a thrust triangle on it. So NASA is going to go ahead and auction this Robonaut, and starts with 0. The Taikonauts like that as well, and so they're going to go ahead and bid 1, and NASA goes ahead and passes because they don't want to spend 2 for it, because that, once again, if you spend 2 and then sell your other one, then it's a net of 1. You could just take an income. And then the ESA says, okay, I really want this Robonaut, so I'm going to go ahead and bid 2. And everybody passes, because it doesn't make sense to pay more for that than that. So boom, there we go. And now ESA has their own Robonaut. All right. Now, since the ESA won the bid at 2, they have to pay NASA for that, because NASA was the one who put it up. And so 2 goes back to NASA. So last turn, NASA paid them 2. This turn, they pay NASA 2. So that's kind of how it evens out and works out. All right. So the ESA now takes a look at these cards and says, all right, I don't really like that thruster too much, because 3 base thrust is pretty low. 2 burns steps per burn is pretty high comparatively to the one that NASA got, which was 5-1. So the ESA is taking a look and thinks, well, you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and take this or auction off this refinery. It's got a 3 mass, which is not too bad. So they're going to go ahead and put up the refinery for auction. So everybody is interested in this refinery at this point. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Let's look at the next refinery. That one's also a 3. So NASA really wants this refinery because if they get the refinery, they've got a full stack rocket on their hands at that point. They can boost that up to low Earth orbit as soon as they have enough money to do so. And they would go ahead and get that thing rolling so that they can get off to Mars. So the ESA puts it up for auction and bids 0. NASA and the Taikonauts, they go back and forth, and the ESA says, well, that's too rich for my blood, so I'm just going to let them go ahead and keep bidding. And ultimately, NASA outbids the Taikonauts 3-2 and wins the auction and claims the refinery card. So NASA is spending a lot of all of their cash. And just like last time, pays this time, though, 3 aqua to the ESA for that patent. So now NASA has all 3 different types of patents sitting in their hand. And the ESA is happy because now they've got 7 aqua plus a card, plus a Robonaut right over there. So, yep. Now we finished year 2. So we got to go ahead and advance this cube up here. So we're going to advance it to year number 3. All right. So now we're at year number 3. And the factions at the end of year 2 have made progress in terms of building their hands. But only ESA has more aquas than the start. So you'll notice that NASA has 0. The Taikonauts have 3, 2 in their aqua pool, and then 1 sitting at low Earth orbit along with their crew. And the ESA has 7. So this gives you kind of an idea of low amount of cards, a lot of aqua. This one is a low amount of cards without any aqua, with about the same amount of aqua, just 1 less. NASA's got 3 cards and no aqua. So you can consider them spending 4 aqua, because that's what they started with, right? 4 aqua for 3 cards. Taikonauts, 1 aqua for 1 card. And the ESA gained 3 and got a card. So you can see whether or not NASA is better than the ESA at this point, we're not really sure, because 3 cards now allows them to get moving, well, as long as they can boost it up to low Earth orbit, but you need aqua in order to do that. So it looked like this person's strategy was, let me get the cards first and then build up the aqua. And then over here, this person's strategy was, let me build up the aqua. If I can get a card, great, but I'm going to make some money. So it kind of gives you a hint on what these people strategy was when they were playing the game. So now each faction needs to collect enough patents in order to build a rocket and gain enough aquas to boost all of the rocket component cards into Leo, and then fuel the rocket for the journey. NASA is in a good position with an efficient thruster, a good robonaut, and a good refinery, which is actually enough to start thinking about getting off the planet. But they have to collect the funds in order to do so, as I mentioned. The ESA and the Taikonauts still need to build their hands. All right, so we're going to go to year 3. The Taikonauts go first, and the Taikonauts are thinking, well, you know what? I don't really like the thruster that I have right now, which is this 14.9, 9 steps of fuel per burn. That is a lot. They don't really mind this thruster here because it's a low mass. They tend to like cards with low mass. So they're going to go ahead and put up the Hall effect card here, this thruster, up for auction. All right. So they're going to go ahead and build bid 0. NASA already has a very good thruster. They don't want to have any more thrusters, so they're good to go. So they just pass. The ESA is interested, but already has a thruster from the Robonaut, from the nuclear drill. So the ESA doesn't want the Taikonauts to get it for free. So the ESA bids 1, and the Taikonauts match it, and it goes ahead and it wins the auction. So basically, the person bid 1 in order to have this person not be able to take it for free. So they have 2 cards now, and 1 aqua will go to the pool because they were the one who initiated the auction. All right. Now, next person up is NASA. And NASA says, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put up this thruster here, which is the De Laval nozzle. And they're going to go ahead and put that up for auction. Probably just trying to make some money off it to see if they can, if somebody else can bid. So they start with 0. And if nobody bids, then that's okay too, because they can take the card in the hand and then remember they can do a free market operation and sell the card. So if nobody bids on it, then then they'll get it for 0 and be able to sell it for 3. It's probably a good strategy because, well, Taikonauts already have a thruster. The ESA already has a thruster, which is pretty much identical to that one, except this one costs 2 aqua in order to get an afterburn, whereas their card is only 1 aqua to get an afterburn. So they're probably thinking that nobody's going to go ahead and bid on it, and they're just going to get it for free and then sell it for 3. So they bid 0, and if somebody else, if they win, they're going to go ahead and have 4 cards in their hand. So they will not be able to participate in any future auctions until they lower their hand limit down down below 4. And that's called the Academia hand limit. So if you have 4 cards or more, you're not able to, you have enough patents. You have to start doing something with them. You have to either build them and get them boosted, or you have to sell them. So everybody passes, and NASA goes ahead and just takes the card for free. So NASA is amassing patents at this point and will most likely sell that thruster next turn. I'm just going to guess. So let's take a look here. The ESA is up next and decides to auction off this thruster. And this thruster is very similar to the thruster that we saw in the last game, where it's a 3-1. And that person actually won the game. Now, it's not as necessarily as good as the 5-1 that NASA has, but the mass is only 3, and NASA's mass is 5. So they're going to go ahead and put up that thruster. And it's the Ponderomotive Vasimir thruster. And it just bids 0. NASA can't bid because they have no room in their hand. And the Taikonauts already have a thruster, although this one is a little bit better. It's a 3-1. Their thruster is a 3-2. So it's possible that the Taikonauts could go ahead and bid, but no, the Taikonauts do not bid, and the ESA gets it for free. So the rich keep getting richer over here in the ESA. And that is the end of the third year. So as you can see, these years can go by pretty quick. And I'm explaining a whole bunch of stuff too, just so that we understand why certain things were done, and also to understand the mechanics as well. So the end of year 3, I think what I'm going to do is bust these into separate parts and keep them at about an hour or so a piece. So we're going to go ahead and call it here. And this will be the first quarter of the first sunspot cycle. So stay tuned for part 2 of High Frontier for All, Race for Glory, the Mars tutorial. That video will be coming up next. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.